The air raid puts up nada for Mississippi State today. I'm Matt Scalisi, joined by Wes Siner here.
That's nothing in Spanish.
That's nothing in Spanish. That's Wes Siner, my bilingual co-host today for our Alabama postgame show. 41-0 win for Alabama over Mississippi State. This was not a very exciting game, Wes, but I think Alabama fans were happy to see it nonetheless, happy to see some progress in certain areas. But first and foremost, the defense. It's been kind of a story for Alabama all year this year that's kind of been their weak spot. And you can't ask for better than pitching a shutout, which is the first time they've done that this year. First time Mike Leach has ever been shut out as a head coach.
Wow.
What I guess jumped out at you specifically about Alabama's defensive performance today?
I mean, like you said, it was just I've kind of been waiting for a game like this out of Alabama on the defensive side of the ball because, I mean, with all the playmakers that they have over there, it seems like they've been capable of putting it together, but have been unable to until this week. I don't really know what to think of Mississippi State at this point in the season because they started off so hot and shattered that SEC passing record against that and that big win over LSU in week 1. But obviously since then they haven't even won a game. So it's interesting to kind of look at that team and I don't know. I mean, how much do you take out of a win like this where you just blow another team away and a team that's been struggling? Obviously it's a good sign for the defense that they have been able to step up today, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what you do have to look for kind of style points, I guess, if you want to call it that. It's a little bit deeper than that, I guess. I think it's more of how it's done, right, rather than just the numbers you put up. Because I think what jumped out to me most about this defensive performance for Alabama was how physical they looked out there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just that they pitched a shutout and they were in the right places to stop the play. I mean, they went out there to, I think, send a statement.
Yeah, make a statement.
And they played extraordinarily physical football against Mississippi State. And I'm not saying I think they intended to hurt people, but a lot of Mississippi State players came out of this game injured. Their starting quarterback went out at one point.
Yeah, this was a pounding. I mean,
there's guys getting suplexed everywhere. I mean, to me, that's stuff that I think you put on film. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to communicate to future opponents of it's going to hurt when you play us.
Right. And it's a good sign for Alabama going into the bye week that, to put up a performance like this, a good sign for the defense for the rest of the season moving forward. But I know we're talking a lot about defense from the beginning of this video, but we haven't mentioned DeVonta Smith yet and his performance tonight.
Yeah.
11 catches, 203 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did he break Amari Cooper's record or did he tie Amari
I believe he's tied now for the school record for receiving touchdowns. He's got a number of games left to go still, so he will very likely be shattering that record. What's crazy is another thing that I saw pop up from this game is this is the first time in SEC history that a player has multiple 4-touchdown games as a receiver, which is a ridiculous thing to happen, but it's not even DeVonta Smith's career best for touchdowns in a game. He has a 5-touchdown game on his record. So this guy is nuts. I think Alabama went into the season kind of everybody would have said that Alabama had, I think, probably the best 1 and 2 combo of receivers in the country in Smith and Waddle. They lose Waddle. And I think the big concern is everybody just going to focus all their effort on DeVonta Smith and shut him down and make a different receiver beat you? I don't know if Mississippi State attempted to do that or if they just failed.
Whatever they were doing, it
didn't work. This is not how you do it. And honestly, a really good performance on the ground too from Alabama, even though they didn't get any rushing touchdowns. You get 119 yards out of Najee Harris. It breaks a long streak of games of him scoring a touchdown, but still a really good game to get 120 yards out of him. And Trey Sanders puts up 80 yards, which is really the first time we've seen him do significant numbers in a game this season.
Right. And I'm sure if DeVonta hadn't scored all those touchdowns, they probably would have gotten some for the running backs too, and more yards for those guys. But
he didn't leave any meat on the bone on a lot of those offensive drives. This Alabama offense, I think, Wes, the thing that I'm kind of still waiting to happen is for somebody to truly frustrate them and them have to, I guess, make it at least look like they're working hard to move the ball and score. There've been stretches of games where it looked that way, but and I think Georgia's really the main one that you look at, that they gave Alabama a hard time for about a half, and they just couldn't do it for a full game. I don't think you look down the rest of Alabama's schedule right now, if we're looking ahead, and the next game on the schedule is against LSU. They have a bye week next week. We just talked about what this Mississippi State team did to LSU to start the season. Auburn on the other side of the state today blew LSU out. I mean, made them look like real punks. I mean, I don't think it's hard to take this LSU team seriously after what Auburn did to them today. I think Kentucky's done some good things this season, especially on defense. But Auburn is basically the only game that I think you look at on this Alabama schedule and say, if somebody's going to beat Alabama, that's probably going to have to be it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the remaining opponents, I think that's the toughest one. But again, as we discussed on the other pages, Auburn's been so inconsistent this year that it's really hard to determine what Auburn team's going to show up. So, and that Iron Bowl is still a few weeks away, and who knows what could happen between now and then. But it's starting to look like Alabama's going to go 10-0. I mean, personally, that's my opinion. I mean, it doesn't look like they're really going to get challenged.
I think the odds,
especially playing that Iron Bowl at home.
Well, and let's. I know we're blowing right past the Alabama LSU game, which we would never do in the past, but I do want to look a little bit more at Auburn, Wes, because I think even though they've got these 2 losses already. One of which is to South Carolina, which is pretty hard to justify. That team out there today, I mean, and we've seen this in the past from Gus Malzahn Auburn teams, they kind of look like maybe they're building confidence and possibly turning a corner. And I do feel like we've seen, 2017 kind of makes me think of that a little bit. That Auburn team looked really rough at certain parts of the season, and I think there were even moments where the Auburn fan base was ready to kick Gus out. And they rounded the corner in that season about as hard as you possibly can. They became world beaters at the end of that season. Do you think you're seeing anything similar to that right now from Auburn?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, they lost that early game to Clemson, and then by the end of the regular season and the championship, the conference championships, they were back up to like number 2 in the country with 2 losses. I don't know if Auburn's. We're talking so much about Auburn on this Alabama Postgame.
I know. Hey, look, we're not going to talk about this game very much. There wasn't much to it.
Iron Bowl preview. No, but I mean, who knows? I've just been. It's just hard for me to get a good pulse on this Auburn team because they've just been up and down and somewhere in between every single week. So I think I'm going to need a couple more games to make that call on whether they're getting to the point where they can compete, in this upcoming Iron Bowl this year. But again, I think Alabama's just they seem to be on cruise control right now, and Mac Jones is just playing out of his mind. And obviously DeVonta Smith had a huge game today, and I don't know. I don't see anybody challenging Alabama at this point.
I don't think the LSU team that we saw today is in any condition to compete with Alabama. I think that game could get ugly, despite it being in Baton Rouge. Wes, before we wrap this thing up, just kind of at a relative midway point of the season, we're going into a bye week next week. How do you feel like things have gone so far this season? I know us and probably everybody else that pays close attention to college football a couple of months ago we're in a position where we really didn't even know if we were going to have a season or not. And, you know, we're at kind of the breaking point about halfway through. How do you feel like it's gone? Does it feel remotely normal to you? Is it bizarre? Like, have you gotten used to the way things are going this season?
There's still a little bit of weirdness to it. But I think it's the best case scenario at this point. You know, obviously the crowds are one of the bigger things that I noticed is like the crowd noise, you know, is so low.
Yeah.
And the energy at the stadium doesn't seem to be, you know, obviously where it should be. You know, I'm happy that I'll get to go to one game this season. That's just kind of the way that it works with media credentials and everything.
Yeah.
They've been putting such a limit on it, but so I haven't been to a game yet this season. So personally, that's been weird, you know, for me. But I don't know. It seems to be as normal as it can be under these 2020, you know, conditions that we're in. But what about you? What do you think?
You know, I think I've been really pleasantly surprised. I mean, it hasn't gone perfectly. We know that Trevor Lawrence has COVID and missed a game today, and is probably going to miss next week too, which you hate to see that affect a season like that.
And that can happen to any team at any time, you know.
For sure. And
an outbreak that could happen.
Yeah, but I do think we've been fortunate that it doesn't seem to have affected people more seriously. It doesn't seem like we're having stories about this having real dire effects on the players involved, and I think that's the people that I primarily am concerned about are the players, because they're doing this for their livelihood, you know, for their future livelihood anyway. I think fans. It's hard to know how that's going, but I think that it's the right decision that they've limited the crowds.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's probably not as much fun for everybody, but the fans can make their own decision about whether they want to go or not, and how to behave when they're there. I feel like the SEC, if you made the determination that we need to have the season, and obviously a lot of people's jobs depend on that, including ours, Wes, that I think they couldn't have done it a better way than they've been doing it for the most part. And I've enjoyed watching these games, and it does sort of, it's one of the only things that has felt sort of normal about this time of year is watching the games on TV.
Yeah, there was a point, you know, where I really didn't think that there was going to be a season at all. So I'm just happy that there has been football. And honestly, I've preferred the conference only schedule. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
I never really, you know, am that invested in those games where, you know, you're playing a smaller school and you're in, you know, it's a cupcake week and that kind of thing. This makes it so much more interesting week in and week out.
I mean, even this game, this is a 41-0 blowout game. You know, I think at least there's the dynamic of Alabama fans know Mississippi State. They have feelings about them. There's a history there.
Right.
So beating them 41-0 actually has like meaning to it. And you get a little bit excited if you're an Alabama fan and fired up about it. If this was a 41-0 win over East Carolina, nobody would care. It would be a completely meaningless game. So I'm with you on that, and I do wonder if that's something they're going to look at long term.
I know Nick Saban has expressed, you know, that he would prefer it to be like this from here on out. I think
for sure. Yeah, he's been pushing for 9 conference games for a long time. Yeah.
No, I'm all for it. I think it's been fun because, you know, personally, I just really watch SEC teams anyway. If there's not an SEC team in the game, then I'm really not that interested personally. So it's been fun. It's been fun to watch.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap this one up. We've got lots of other coverage of this game on our page here, on YouTube and on Facebook, wherever you're watching us, and over at AL.com. I hope everybody had a good Halloween. Wes,
happy Halloween.
I want to shout out your Mandalorian jack-o'-lantern back there.
I'll show you.
Yeah, bring it over to us. Give us the close-up. Look how proud he is, folks. That's great. Really excellent. Good job, Wes.
Can't hear you.
I said good job. That's
thank
some
you.
Excellent craftsmanship there.
It was quick and dirty, but you know, I got it done.
All right. Well, hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend and enjoy the bye week. We're still going to continue to have lots of coverage over at AL.com of everything that goes on with Alabama football during the bye week. Nick Saban will still be talking and things will still develop. So keep us tuned in and hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend.